Good afternoon, Dan. Are we currently live?
Yes, and no, I'm not Dan.
Sorry, Rachel. I think IT needs a video camera. Very good. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors meeting this day, March 23rd, 2021. It is Tuesday and it is 10 o'clock, and we're going to go ahead and get started with our regular session. And at this point, I'd like to call roll. Kylie, could you please call roll?
Chair, just to clarify, was Supervisor Hemmingson in closed session?
He was.
Okay, I'm not seeing him on yet. Do we want to hold off or?
We could, yes, we could be patient.
Okay.
There we go. Heidi, can you please, or sorry, Kylie, can you please take roll?
Supervisor Starkey?
Here.
Supervisor Short?
Here.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
I'm here.
Chair Howard?
Present.
And I'll take note that Supervisor Berkowitz is absent.
Thank you, Kylie. At this time, I'd like to take a brief moment of reflection. Thank you. Please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Certainly. Thank you. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jay, is there any new employees to introduce today?
No, not that I'm aware of.
And I know there's nothing to report out of closed session at this time.
That's correct.
So do we have any requests from the board for deletions, corrections, or additions to the agenda? Okay. Okay, then at this time, I'd like to go ahead and get started with board reports. And I'd like to start with Supervisor Starkey, please.
Thank you, Supervisor. This last couple of weeks, I have participated in the Food Task Force planning session. The task force received Farmers to Families food boxes, which were distributed to groups such as RHS, Pacific Pantry, Our Daily Bread, and Mission Possible. I attended a visitor bureau meeting. I attended the first 5 meetings. Sadly, this was possibly Angela Glor's final meeting as the executive director. Angela and her husband are relocating out of the area, and our community was very fortunate to have Angela, and her vision and tenacity, and interviews for a replacement for her will occur in the near future. I attended the 4th of July sponsorship meeting. I participated in the special meeting for the CAO interviews, and I'm very pleased with the board selection. I attended the Area 1 Aging Agency public hearing. I attended the Del Norte County Solid Waste Management Authority meeting. There, I was introduced to a thing called SB 1383, which then drove me down a rabbit hole investigating everything that I need to know about 1383 and how this is going to impact our county and our community. And it is my mission to become an expert on all things 1383. I was able to meet with the members of True North. I attended Senator McGuire's town hall meeting where he talked about the vaccinations and the rollouts. I was fortunate enough to receive daily reports on last chance grade with the tree clearing process. My thoughts do go out to those 3 individuals who were injured last Tuesday when Caltrans and their contractor were attempting to clear trees off the slide. Caltrans just continues to do an excellent job keeping us informed about the progress of the landslide and how they're trying to make that road secure. I worked with a select group of department heads as we review and revise the administration manual. And I just really want to take a moment to express my gratitude to these hardworking department heads who are so committed to their work in this county. And I'm really enjoying getting to know them, their work ethics, and their senses of humor for some of them. And then finally, I spent as much time as I could with CAO Jay Serena, trying to gather as much information as possible in light of his retirement. This is CAO Serena's last meeting at the helm, and I'm going to miss him tremendously. I'm going to miss his wisdom, his sage guidance, and everything that he's helped me do as we navigate through difficult decisions and discussions. So that is it for me.
Thank you, Supervisor Starkey. Supervisor Short.
Thank you, Chair. I attended Measure S Oversight Committee meeting. Wanted to thank Kelly Shalong, Ernie Perry, and Cindy Cruz for volunteering their time to oversee this process of spending the city's Measure S funding. I also attended agenda review for Delaware Solid Waste. I attended North Coast EMS JPA meeting and met Humboldt County Supervisor Rex Bond and Lake County Supervisor Moke Simon. Had a great meeting there, navigating our emergency services JPA. I met with CAO Serena and Assistant CAO Lopez and to talk about collective bargaining. Learned quite a bit there. I appreciate their taking the time with me to discuss those issues. I also, of course, attended this special meeting of the board, and I am also very happy with our selection for a new CAO. Attended the Delaware Solid Waste Management meeting. Couple noted items. We'll soon see new paired trash and recycle containers around, and there also is a beach cleanup scheduled for April 22nd from 2 to 4 p.m. If anybody out there is interested, registration is required because it is in the state park. It's going to be out at Kellogg Beach. So if you have any questions on how to register or RSVP for that, you can contact Crystal Yang, the Tobacco Use Prevention Health Education Coordinator at 464-3191, extension 2831 if you're interested in helping. I also participated in a meeting with True North, similar to Supervisor Starkey's meeting as well. I'd also like to thank Jay Serena as well. He has tirelessly worked for the people of this county, and he will be sorely missed. He's still going to be around, so we'll still be picking his brain, I'm sure, and just wanted to wish him well in his retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Short. Supervisor Hemmingson.
Yes, thank you. I had a few meetings. Most of them were relatively long. RCRC meeting, which usually takes up 3/4 of the day or so. And as Supervisor Starkey said, 1383 is on everybody's mind. It's set goals that are certainly going to be unattainable, having to do with waste. So That's something that the ESJPA from RCRC has taken up a massive amount of their time to deal with. And Supervisor Starkey, if you can come up with a solution, great. I'd love to see it because that's going to be a tough one. I did participated in the CAO, the special meeting of the Board of Supervisors with the CAO interviews. It went very well. We had some great candidates. And of course, we picked the top candidate there, and very happy about what's going on there. That we'll deal with later on in the agenda. I had a RAMP working group meeting, which is a risk assessment management plan for the Dungeness crab fishery. Also had a 2-day Dungeness crab task force meeting, which was Zoom, which gets very tiring to deal with all the issues that are there. And as Supervisor Starkey said, we have been getting, it seems like almost hourly updates on last chance grade. The Caltrans worker and the 2 contractor employees that were injured, our thoughts and prayers go out with it, out to them for a speedy recovery, and hope that goes well. A few constituent issues and complaints that that we all deal with. That's kind of a normal thing. I would like to say a few things about our soon to be ex-CAO. We have been working together for at least my terms that I've been here. So from the beginning, he was the assistant CAO, and then shortly thereafter moved up to CAO. Jay Serena has been, just a top person. No one more honest, with more integrity. His work ethics and his ethics alone, his dedication, his knowledge, his resourcefulness. He's trustworthy, unbiased. He's a pleasure to work with because he is very truthful. There is nobody that has more dedication to this county. And I don't want to take away from any of the other department heads who have that same dedication, but there's nobody that's more dedicated in his efforts and what he's done. And I will certainly miss him as CAO. Confident that we have a fine replacement that will do a great job. But his institutional knowledge and his work ethic is something to be looked at favorably. He's just been a great person for the county. And I can't say enough about him. And good luck to him in his retirement. This is his last meeting as CAO, and I just want to say, Jay, good luck to you, and hope everything works out well for you. That's it for me. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor Hemmingson. Had considerable meetings over the last several months, and I've alluded to them as they're associated with the California Board of Forestry and Senate measures that have been rolling out to implement basically the fire safe plan for the state of California. And I've got to compliment our staff, Heidi Kunstl in particular, and Rosanna Bauer. In addition, staff of the UC Cooperative Extension, Jana Valikovic, for really helping Del Norte County try to drill down on the fire safe regulations for the state. I cannot say enough of how strongly I feel that this will change literally the landscape of Del Norte County and our ability to develop our current developable lands. And it's unfortunate some of the regulations are rolling out like this, because I feel like they're developed in a vacuum. And even though our lobbies like CSAC and RCRC and the League of Cities have voiced very strong opposition to how the regulations have come forward. Those regulations have not been paid attention to. And yesterday, during a 4-hour meeting, where well over 23 counties, staff, elected officials gave public comment to delay and slow the process to allow collaborative stakeholder contributions so these regulations wouldn't be so impactful and not allow growth within current developable lands. The Board of Forestry, on a 6-2 decision, still decided to go forward with a 45-day notice. And it's disappointing, and I'm sure we'll continue these efforts, but I want folks to realize that this has more potential to change the landscape of Del Norte County than a lot of things have in our recent history. So we'll continue paying close attention to it as a board and as staff, and hopefully we'll have some resolution within the regulations and some influence in the future. Supervisor Hemmingson and I attended a Natural Resource Goals Committee meeting together, where we discussed with staff mitigation, essentially, that we need and we're running short of in our county. Another problem we're plagued with when agencies like the California Coastal Commission ask us for ratios of 5 to 1. For every 1 acre of land we impact, they want to see 5 acres of land potentially turn into wetland, for instance. This is getting to be costly when we're already 80% public land. So we continue to wrestle with these kind of challenges here in Del Norte County. In addition, handling some issues in Hayuchi around hazel time and working closely with staff and community development, and also the sheriff, to try to address some of these issues. Attended a gender review, also attended the special meeting as the board members reflected on. And as Jerry mentioned, I think we've made a really good decision, solid decision for the county. Great interviews, but there was a clear person that rose to the top of this process. As mentioned, also, I did have an interview with True North. A lot of the discussion had to do with continuing the homeless type issues to address here in the county and how we could help with that process. And then participated in a great deal of activities associated with the memorial around the Great East Japan earthquake, which was culminated in presentations on March 11th, 2021 with the Council General's Office of San Francisco. Also, as everybody's mentioned around Last Chance Grade, feel a great deal of pride in not only our Caltrans workers, but the workers from GR Sunberg that put life and limb literally at risk every day to keep our north-south alignment and connectivity open. I did speak to GR Sunberg staff and, more importantly, individuals that were injured in that process, and they were in good spirits, but it's going to be 6+ months before we see some of these folks return to jobs they love. So great job, folks. I hate the risk that you're putting us through, but at the same time, I'm super proud that you continue to do a job to keep us connected with the rest of the state of California. Attended a North Coast Unified Air Quality Management meeting. And then finally, I want to end with a note to our CAO as he's retiring, Jay Serena. Jay, I've known you since 1994, when we got a chance to become pretty good friends in the Del Norte County Fish and Game Commission. I know it's been a rather interesting climb for you over the years. You've been an amazing individual to this county, and as every supervisor has reflected today, including Supervisor Hemmingson, who's known you well through his terms as supervisor, you've shown a level of commitment to this county that cannot go unstated as being so important. That level of commitment came with tremendous sacrifice, and that does not go unnoticed. And that sacrifice I talk about is the sacrifice to family, where sometimes family comes second to the priorities of the county. And I want you to know, as this board has reflected, that that is so important. And at the same time, I'm wishing you the best as your family, and more importantly, your daughter, gets to spend some true quality time with her father as she's going through some of the best times of her life in high school. So, Jay, super proud of you. I'm wishing you all the best, and I know we're all going to get to see you quite a bit because you're going to stay here, but you've done an incredible job for this county, and it has not gone unnoticed. So congratulations on your retirement, and I really look forward to hanging out with you when you're ready to have some more fun. So with that, I want to go ahead and move to our consent agenda. And if everybody's had a chance to look at that, I'll go ahead and take a motion at this time. And we'll probably have a couple proclamations we'd like to read too, once we see a motion go to public comment.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you very much,
I'll
Supervisor.
second.
Thank you, Supervisor Short. Kylie, can you please open it up for public comment?
Give me one moment. Linda, you are on.
Good morning. Well, there was a lot of things on the consent agenda, and I know you expect people to get in and read all the documents that support these things on the consent agenda, but I'm finding that a lot of things are getting rubber stamped, and you're not really informing the public. For Valerie, she's the only one that seems to be thorough right now. But when I hear you folks talk about your what you've done in the past month, you really don't get into it. It sounds like it's pretty important stuff, Mr. Howard, that there's an issue with the landscape, and you don't explain what that issue is. So I'm finding that you folks sitting up there and saying, well, I went to this meeting and I went to that meeting, but you don't explain to the public what you did in those meetings and what was accomplished in those meetings. And I'd really like to see more information coming from my supervisors. Thank you very much.
Kylie, any other public comment on the consent?
I do see one hand raised, but I'm pretty sure it would be more appropriate for just our regular public comment period. Chair, it's up to you. Do you want me to allow them to speak now? It would be from Mitch Hanna.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if there's a time delay, they're certainly welcome to speak if it's on a consent agenda item. Do you know for sure if it's not on a consent agenda item?
He just lowered his hand, so I think he's going to speak during the regular comment period at 10:25.
Very good. So there's no further public comment at this time for consent?
I'm not seeing any at this time, Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Kylie, then can you please poll the vote?
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. We do have two proclamations that I'd like to have read. I'd like Supervisor Starkey to read the first proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month, if she doesn't mind.
I don't mind at all. I'm honored, actually. So the proclamation supporting the designation of April 21st, 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors recognize that every moment of a child's life is an opportunity to learn, and that the quality of these experiences may determine whether a child succeeds in school or in life, and that all children need loving, caring, and loving adults in their lives. And whereas the county acknowledges that our children are our greatest resource, and that our future will be determined by their innovative talents, ideas, and leadership. Whereas the role of our people is to accept the responsibility of ensuring that every child experiences an environment at home, at childcare, and at school that will promote the best possible development. And whereas all communities have the responsibility of offering parents the education, support, and skills needed to provide a healthy, safe, and nurturing home for their children. Now therefore be it resolved that the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims the month of April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and urges the community to support the efforts of the Del Norte County Child Abuse Prevention Council, First 5 Del Norte Children, Families Commission, the Del Norte County Child Care Council, the Del Norte County Juvenile Court, CASA of Del Norte County Health and Human Services, licensed foster care homes, public and private agencies, and programs advocating for children in Crescent City, and to the parents who already provide a safe, loving, and nurturing environment to their children, free of any outside intervention, passed and adopted on this 23rd day of March, 2021.
Thank you, Supervisor Starkey. Is there anybody here with us to receive that proclamation today that you're aware of, Kylie? I see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Melody, you are on.
Good morning, Melody.
Good morning. Thank you, Supervisor Starkey and the entire Board of Supervisors for the proclamation and recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. The Child Abuse Prevention Council, also known as CAPC, is a council of agencies and individuals who advocate on behalf of children in Del Norte County. We meet monthly to discuss resources, issues, and problem solve as we work together to prevent child abuse in our community. We meet the first Mondays of each month from 12:30 to 1:30 via Zoom. With April being the Child Abuse Prevention Month, we would like to invite the Board of Supervisors and our entire county to our month of April activities. And those events are the Children's Memorial Flag Raising and Candlelight Vigil. This is hosted at the Del Norte County Fairgrounds and will also be streamed live on Facebook at 5:30 on April 1st. You will see those flags flown all over Del Norte County, and CAPC would like to extend a thank you to the county for flying one of the children's memorial flags at the Flynn Center. We are also supporting, this is new this year, the Pass the Pinwheel campaign. This is a pledge from businesses and residents where there is a display of pinwheels or a garden of pinwheels to bring awareness. And then you hashtag Pass the Pinwheel on social media. You make pledges to raise awareness in our community and lower the risk factors for child maltreatment. There are going to be many gardens around the community. And if you're interested in a pinwheel packet, you could come on down to the Del Norte Child Care Council and we will give you one of those. Bicoastal Media will be hosting Week of the Young Child on April 12th through the 16th, where each night, like-minded agencies host a story hour for children. We offer trivia and prizes for children and many local resources and parenting tips for the community. For more information about CAPC, we have a Facebook page, or you can call the Family Resource Center or Del Norte Child Care Council. And lastly, all the county supervisors were given a blue ribbon to wear in recognition of Child Abuse Prevention Month in April. Please wear them. And thank you, Supervisor Short. If someone asks you what it means, please tell them we all play a role in the healthy development of our children in our community. Thank you again, Board of Supervisors, for helping us raise awareness of child abuse and neglect in our county. This proclamation is greatly appreciated on behalf of the Child Abuse Prevention Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we had another proclamation, which was agenda item number 3, which is for Tsunami Preparedness Week. I know we're doing a lot of activities here for that this week, but at this time, I'd also like Jay, who also functions as our director for the Office of Emergency Services. Jay, if you wouldn't mind, can you read that proclamation into record?
This is a proclamation of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors proclaiming March 22nd through the 26th, 2021 as Tsunami Preparedness Week. Whereas California's long coastline, its proximity to other coastal states with offshore earthquake faults, and its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire make it vulnerable to tsunamis. And whereas California has been struck by more than 24 tsunamis with waves 3 or more feet in height since 1812, including 15 that have caused damage, and that included loss of life in Del Norte County on March 27, 1964, and on March 11, 2011. And whereas tsunamis are caused by underwater earthquakes and slides that can occur at any time and with little warning, and Crescent City's unique geography increases the area's susceptibility to tsunamis. And whereas recognizing education and awareness are fundamental in saving lives in a tsunami event, the County of Del Norte and the City of Crescent City continue to plan and train, testing mass notification systems, community preparedness and response. And whereas new tsunami hazard area maps have been recently adopted for the region and new tsunami hazard area brochures are now available to the public. And whereas the week of March 22nd through March 26th will include intensive public outreach and education efforts to include these new maps and other tsunami preparedness and response information. And whereas the National Weather Service, the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and the County of Del Norte Office of Emergency Services will test the availability or the ability to issue a tsunami warning for Del Norte County via the emergency alert system on Wednesday, March 24th, 2021 between 11 and 12 noon. And now therefore be proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Del Norte that the week of March 22nd through the 26th, 2021 as Tsunami Preparedness Week in Del Norte County on this 23rd day of March, 2021.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate you reading that in the record and all the efforts that your office and our emergency services manager have gone through to prepare us for this week and the activities associated with it. Okay, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and move on with item number 18, which is our public comment period. Members of the public may address the board on matters which are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on our agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Kylie, do we have public comment?
Yes. Mitch, you are on.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I want to apologize for not submitting something in advance so that it actually was on the agenda, but we have been working diligently with the county and the sheriff's department over the many months, but kind of the crisis just kind of peaked this morning at about 6 a.m. as we have 6 psych patients out of 9 patients in our ER. And I just thought that given that you had a meeting today, it'd be a good opportunity to share our challenges with all of you. So if you bear with me, I will just read my prepared remarks. There is a mental health crisis in our county, and it is causing a harmful and potentially dangerous situation at Sutter Coast Hospital. Sutter Coast is an acute care hospital. It is not a mental health facility. While our staff receive some training in managing assaultive behavior, they are not mental health professionals skilled in managing the care of patients with significant mental health issues. The Department of Health and Human Services for Del Norte County has repeatedly shirked its responsibility to manage the care of these patients and to facilitate their appropriate transfer to facilities that are licensed to provide mental health services. Exacerbating this situation, patients with mental health issues, not acute care needs, are routinely being delivered to our hospital from the county jail. Most recently, a jail inmate who had been there for over 120 days was delivered to Sutter Coast, allegedly because he was eating his own excrement, clearly not for an acute care condition. Sutter Coast Emergency Department has seemingly become the county's designated mental health holding facility. Today, we currently have 6 psychiatric patients in our 11-bed emergency department. Not only does this put our staff at risk, but it may have negative implications for those members of our community who have true acute care needs. Frequently, when we have located appropriate psychiatric facilities willing to accept these patients, the county refuses to agree to the transfer and the costs associated with the transfer. In the past, we have tried to collaborate with the county to develop a crisis stabilization unit, but we were advised that the county could not afford to support this. Sutter Coast is not responsible for the provision of mental health services in Del Norte County, as the county holds this responsibility. According to the State Department of Health Care Services, A county may not deny transfers to non-contracted hospitals from emergency departments for patients on Section 5150 holds. For those of you who may not know, a 5150 hold is a 72-hour hold when a person, as the result of a mental health disorder, is a danger to others or to himself or herself, or is gravely disabled. The county holds the authority to designate such individuals as a 5150 hold. Sutter Coast does not hold such authority. We humbly request that the Board of Supervisors require its Department of Health and Human Services to immediately assume its responsibility for the management of this psychiatric patient population and to preclude the Sheriff's Department from dumping non-acute patients in our emergency department. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Kylie, any further public comment at this time?
Chair, I'm not seeing any.
All right. Then we'll go ahead and move on with our 10:30 timed item, which is a redistricting update. And I believe our Assistant County Counsel, Autumn Luna, is here with us today to discuss that. Good morning, Autumn.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me this time to bring this important issue to your attention. I am going to share my screen. I've got a few slides I want to share with you. Bear with me while I do this for the first time at a meeting. All right. So redistricting, I'm calling this presentation part 1 because this is a huge topic and we will be meeting on this several more times over the next 9 months before our deadline to redistrict. I am presenting this out of the County Counsel's office, but I wanted to just take a minute to say this is going to be a team effort. I've already met with several members of the team, as it were. Elisa Northrup and Heidi Kunstel, Rachel Serena have all been helpful so far. And this is not just County Counsel working on this. It's been a pleasure to have this opportunity to work with other members of the county team. So let's start with a very basic question. Why are we talking about redistricting? Well, redistricting is required by law, so that's number one. But at a deeper level, the U.S. Constitution, specifically the Equal Protection Clause, requires equal representation in government. What does that mean for us at the county level? What that means is that one district shouldn't have more people than any other district to the greatest extent possible. So our county has 5 districts. Each one of the supervisors represents one of them. And again, to the greatest extent possible, you want to have equal numbers in each of your districts. So after each decennial census, the law requires us to take a look at those numbers, and if populations have changed, then we may have to redraw lines to ensure that the goal of equal representation is met. Redistricting also gives us an opportunity to review and comply with updates to state and federal law. This only happens every 10 years, so a lot can change in that 10-year time period, and indeed a lot has changed since redistricting last happened in 2011. This is not going to come as news to any of the supervisors, but for other folks, members of the public who are watching, I just want to make sure that everybody kind of understands at the most basic level what we're talking about. These are the big by area districts represented by Chair Howard and Supervisors Hemmingson and Berkowitz. These are the 2 smaller by area districts represented by Supervisors Starkey and Short. And just to give you some sense of what our county makeup looked like in 2010, here are the numbers for each of those districts. So population total in 2010, about 25,000 people. Thinking back to that first slide, if we were to just divide that by 5, easy math, each of those districts should be about 5,000 people. So you can see here that some of the districts have a little bit more, some have a little bit less. The goal is to keep this at 5% from the median, 10% total. The mathematicians out there will be able to see that districts 5 and districts 2 are more than 10% past that in 2010. We don't know what that looks like now, but certainly at least those 2 districts, you know, we'll want to make sure that we get them as close as possible. So moving on, redistricting then and now. As I said before, a lot has changed. Virtually everything has changed. When to adopt, who decides, public hearings, public participation, record keeping, mid-decade changes, all of those are going to look different this year than they looked in 2011 when the county last went through this process. So when to adopt, here we have a little bit of good news. We have a longer time period than we used to have. It used to be that November 1st was the date by which maps had to be adopted. We now have until December 15th, 2021, which is a little better. Unfortunately, of course, because of COVID-19, we're not going to get census data until September 30th. Usually we get census data in March. So that's a significant delay in when we get that census data. The legislature is working on a couple of fixes for this, but realistically, this December 15th deadline is something that we should try to stick to because we start bumping up against the next regular election if we go much past that December 15th timeline. So it's going to be tight, but we're going to do it. Who decides on which maps get adopted or whether or not boundaries move around? It used to be that the Board of Supervisors did that. Recent changes in the law allow the Board of Supervisors to appoint an advisory or independent commission. An independent commission would make the decision about boundaries being redrawn and maps being adopted for you. And in some counties, that's mandatory, big ones like LA and San Diego. In counties like ours, we have the choice to appoint an advisory committee. And that advisory commission, would make recommendations to the board. The board would then make the final determination. And I think this is going to be the model that a lot of counties like ours choose. Nice to have a commission to do some of the legwork and bring back recommendations to the board. In 2011, only one public hearing before the public hearing at which the new maps were adopted was necessary. Now you have to have at least 4 public hearings. So one before draft maps are drawn, at least 2 after they're drawn, and at least 1 that encourages public participation by people who work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Public participation itself is much different now. It used to be that so long as you were complying with the Brown Act, you were on solid ground. In several ways, the requirements in the Brown Act have been extended. In other words, you have to post dates and times of hearings 5 days prior, for example. Of course, under the Brown Act, you only have to do it 72 hours ahead of time. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can see that the public participation and outreach requirements in the law since 2011 have changed substantially. And so this will be a big push for staff over the coming months. Record keeping has also changed. We now have to have a dedicated website that's informing the public about what's going on during the process. And then for 10 years after the process is completed, that'll be a repository for all of the information that was gathered during this process. So record keeping requirements have been increased substantially. And finally, mid-decade changes, which used to be okay, and you used to be able to base them on mid-decade, not census data, but data collected in a kind of less official way. You can't do that anymore. Basically now, mid-decade changes are frowned upon. They'll never be possible without a judicial proceeding. They'll always have to be based on the decennial census. And even then, there are additional qualifications that make mid-decade changes very unlikely. So we talked about the deadline, December 15th. We talked about the fact that we won't have census data until September 30th. There are a lot of things that we can do between now and September to make up for the fact that there's going to be a real short window there between September and December. These first two things: convene advisory committee and introduce the board to the idea. These have both been accomplished now. Thought I'd start out by making us feel really good about our timeline. Advisory committee at the staff level, we've already met. People are dialoguing about this issue and how to take it head on and not be overwhelmed by something that, you know, most of us haven't done before. So the next thing is to appoint a commission, and I will take, once we've finished here, this is my last slide, but I will take direction from the board about whether or not you want me to bring a resolution back to the board on appointing a commission, either independent or advisory. May and June, getting the dedicated website up, doing public outreach, all of that makes sense. And then in the summer, we can do our first public hearing, the one that we can do before the census data is out. Obviously in September, we're going to be receiving and analyzing that census data and drawing maps. And then November, December, introduce and adopt those maps. So I have no idea how I did on time. I was given 10 minutes.
You did just fine, Autumn.
I think I did okay. I am going to leave you with this quote, and I'll take comments or questions from the board while people are reading this. But I wanted to put this up from Chief Justice Earl Warren from a seminal case on this topic, and it will kind of presage the fact that I didn't get a chance today to talk about things like racial gerrymandering and communities of interest, mostly because those topics are going to take longer than 10 minutes. But also, I just wanted to give you kind of some bite-sized pieces of this because it's a big topic, and we'll be talking about it more in the future. So that's all I've got for you. Questions are welcome.
Appreciate it. Any questions from the board at this time? All right. Kylie, is there any public comment on this item?
Give me just one moment. Chair, I'm not seeing any at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then, Autumn, I appreciate you bringing the board up to speed on this. It sounds like we have a very aggressive timeline to try to get to some resolution by December, and we'll look forward to future agenda items then to keep the board up to speed and, more importantly, react accordingly through proclamation or resolution to try to get some balls in motion.
Indeed. Pleasure.
Okay, thank you again. All right, then I'm going to move to item 20 on our agenda at this time, which is conduct a public hearing to approve and authorize the submission of a 2021 Community Development Block Grant application, approve and adopt a resolution of the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors approving an application for funding and the execution of all necessary state issued standard agreements and any amendments thereto from the state Community Development Block Grant Program, and authorize county administrative officer to sign housing and community development threshold required applications, certifications, and statements of assurances And I believe, Jay, you're with us today to discuss this item.
I am, but I'm going to defer to Tony Self, who is our CDBG person.
Excellent. We love having Tony on board.
Well,
Good
good morning.
Tony.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. Before you this morning for consideration and approval is the request to submit an application for the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA. The 2021 NOFA was released in early February and listed approximately $30 million in available in program funding, which is allocated to the state from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or known as HUD. The Community Development Block Grant Program is a federally funded program through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The objective of a CDBG program is for the development of viable urban communities by providing decent housing, suitable living environments, and expanding economic opportunities, principally for persons who are low to moderate income. Another critical priority for this funding is to ensure that all eligible persons receive equitable access to services and are served with dignity, respect, and compassion, regardless of circumstance, ability, or identity. Some important items specific to this NOFA that I wanted to mention this morning is that all applications will be submitted and programs operated through the new configured grants management portal. The department will not be accepting any new community development over-the-counter or OTC project applications for this funding round. It seems that as a part of the redesign, when initially releasing the over-the-counter applications for shovel-ready projects, they were oversubscribed in last year's NOFA. So any housing, infrastructure, or public facilities projects were not accepted applications this year. The department will fund down the existing wait list of these shovel-ready projects with the funding that was originally set aside in the 2021 NOFA. And the 50% expenditure rule still applies during this NOFA for like activities. For those of you who aren't familiar with CDBG, to be eligible for funding, all activities must meet a national objective. The proposed programs before you today will meet the national objective of benefit to low to moderate income, limited clientele. What this means is that the activity provides a benefit to a specific group of persons rather than everyone in an area, which in this case is abused children and the elderly. Under this NOFA, Del Norte County is eligible to apply for public service programs, which are part of the HCD's competitive application process. If an application, is approved today, the completed applications will be due to the state via the online portal by April 30th. As a result of a public design meeting that was held back on February 25th, and the program proposals received, the proposed county application would include the following. Basically, we will be applying for public services for a total grant application not to exceed $500,000. The applications would include CASA of Del Norte and Del Norte Senior Nutrition Program. With that, I'm here to answer any questions that the board might have.
Great. Thank you, Tony, for that great summary. Any questions from board members at this time? Okay, then we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Chair, I am not seeing any hands raised at this time.
All right, then we'll return to the board, and if the board has a decision to make, I'd love to hear it now if there's a motion that can be placed on the table.
Chair, I move to approve and adopt the resolution and to authorize the CAO to sign the CDBG threshold required.
I will second that.
Okay, and does that include the submission of the block grant application itself?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Just don't need Mr. Campbell on me on this one. Now we do have a motion and a second on the table. Kylie, can you please pull the vote?
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. Tony, thank you for that thorough synopsis. Community development grant programs here in our county. I know they're difficult, and you've done a great job keeping up to speed. More importantly, with all the changes at the state level. Know it's complicated, but these do support really important programs in our community. And thank you for making those efforts to keep us up to speed.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go ahead and go to our 10:50 timed item, which is an update from Dr. Raywald. It's concerning COVID-19 in our community. Dr. Raywald, are you with us today?
Chair, I'm not seeing Dr. Raywald on. I'm not sure.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, never mind.
There he is. Good morning, Doctor.
I'm on. Yeah, I'm calling in only, so no video today.
No worries.
I'm going to be very brief because I'm calling in from the road, and the only real news that we have of note since the last time I reported to the board is that we've had a couple new sites open up for vaccination for COVID. One of which is Safeway. We're supplying them with some Moderna vaccines. It's a fairly low-level operation, but it's another option for people. And the other is Sutter Community Clinic. We decided to go ahead and provide some surplus vaccine that we had to get another site opened up. That is open for their patients, also open for the public. And if people want to set up an appointment, they can call the Sutter Community Clinic number, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's easy to find on a web search. And that's the main points. We've probably done in the community at least 7,000 doses. I know Rite was telling me that they did about a little over 2,000 first doses in their first few weeks of operation. They've now moved on to second doses, and they'll be revisiting first doses once they get their second dose schedule done. So that's all good news for us. That's a huge boon to have that kind of volume of vaccination going on. Our case numbers are kind of holding steady, kind of creeping up. This last week, I think we saw a little bit of decline over the prior week, but not in a good place, not where we'd like it to be. I think we'll probably be holding at red tier, but we're getting close to the point where we could get bumped back down, and I would hate to see that happen, as I'm sure everyone else would. And that's all I'm going to mention today. I'm going to leave it open for questions from the board. Try and make this as brief as possible. I know you have a busy schedule today.
Thank you, Dr. Raywald. Any questions from the board at this time?
I have a couple. As we signed a agreement this morning about switching over to My Turn, how is that going to impact us here? With the My Turn, for people that don't know, is the way to register for vaccines in the future. I don't know when that actually is going to hit. I know I did a trial on it and I got my confirmation back that I was signed up, but I was just kind of curious how that's going to impact our county and how we've been distributing vaccines so far.
In the end, I think it's going to help. It's going to be kind of an interesting transition over the next couple of weeks, but at some point, when vaccine is generally available for everybody, when we get into the next numbered tiers, then we really want to have something like this in place to make it easy to sign up. Because the reality is, a lot of the demand is fluctuating already. I mean, a lot of the people who are really interested in getting vaccinated have gotten vaccinated or started the vaccination process. And a lot of people who are kind of hesitant are not really lining up to get it done right now. So we actually, a couple of weeks ago, we were trying to set up one of our clinics for seniors and teachers, and we had to go through a long list, over 900 people to really collect about 100 people to show up for vaccination. That's a lot of time-consuming work, and My Turn is going to take that away. I mean, basically, it's user-driven. So you register online, and you get your appointment, your date, and your time. It'll make it much easier for us to manage our regular clinics that we're anticipating, from now until least the end of June. So in that sense, it's great. The other part that really helps us a lot is that it automatically feeds the registry of the vaccination event for any person who gets vaccinated into the database. And that's actually kind of a fairly strict federal requirement that there be a turnaround of reporting of vaccination very quickly. I mean, their original goal is within 24 hours. That's almost impossible to meet most of the time if you're using paper. And even with, uploading computer created lists of names, it's still kind of cumbersome. But using My Turn will make that almost automatic and almost instantaneous. So those are two really good pluses for the system. We've still got a little learning to do through the health department, our staff. But, we reviewed what's out there, and it's not really that complicated, at least from our end. And I think it's going to be fairly people understand. So, it's going to be a little bit rocky at the very first, but I think it'll settle down and it'll be fine.
All right. And so for the meantime, and I'm not telling you this, but I just want to remind everyone that for now you can call 464-0861 and talk with somebody to get, and that's manned. Those phones are manned from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And you'll talk with somebody that can get you on a list or tell you when it will be essentially your turn based on your health conditions. So
yeah, they can schedule an appointment. And it is, remember, we are open to people with health conditions basically from teen years up to 65. So if you have a qualifying health condition, you should definitely take advantage of that. It's one of the reasons we're actually still trying to get a lot of vaccine into the offices, the medical offices, because now that we're treating this group of people for vaccination, those are really the ideal situations because they know their patients the best. They can figure out who really needs to get called and get in to get vaccinated. Yeah. And there is we kind of a homegrown version of My Turn that we're trying to stand up this week. I think it's this week or next week. And Heather may know more about this if she's there, if she's attending. Where people can sign up online and essentially get the same service. So you get you enter your date and then we get a chance to call you back and contact you. So it makes it a little bit easier if you're having trouble getting on the phone line.
And the only last thing I have, Dr. Raywalt, is I just really appreciate you always getting back to me when I send you emails with questions and concerns. And so I just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
Please, Supervisor Short.
Dr. Raywalt, this is Darren Short. Supervisor Starkey was talking about the MOU that we have already acted upon. And I appreciate your comments about My Turn, and it does sound hopeful that it is going to be useful to DHHS. I know initially most counties were kind of skeptical through CSAC and the discussions we had about that third-party requirement. People were mostly of the opinion that leave us alone. We'll do a good job on our on our own. We can handle it. So it's good to hear that My Turn will make that easier, ease that burden. But in that MOU, you talked about the 24-hour requirement for reporting. But in the MOU, it says that we have to report on 3 different platforms: My Turn, the CDC Vaccine Finder, and the California Immunization Registry too. Is this going to be a more cumbersome process now that the MOU is going to require us to do that, or were we already having to do that?
I think so. I think it's going to take a step or two out of the picture for us. And the reason is we don't report directly to CDC, the state does, and the state bases it on CARE, which is the California Immune Registry. And My Turn, if everything works all the time, is supposed to report directly into CARE as it's being done. So that helps us. It takes a lot of the work off our backs trying to report it. And so that's what I mean by taking a step or two away for us. Vaccine Finder is a little different. That's basically an inventory reporting system. That's fairly it's fairly easy to do. It's not really anything that's been a huge burden for us. And it kind of does, it's kind of good actually, because it kind of keeps us on our toes and makes sure that we're following what we have on inventory and tracking where we're sending. But I think overall, the move to My Turn, as long as it's functional and working well, it should help us. You know, it'll be some step saving, work saving measures that will help quite a bit.
Very good. Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Kylie, is there any public comment on this item?
Chair, I am not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Thank you again for joining us today, Dr. Raywald. Your comments on this particular issue of COVID-19 in our community continue to be well made and well received by the board, and we appreciate these reports quite a bit. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll have you again on our next agenda.
Okay, thank you. See you next time.
Take care. All right. At this point in time, I'd like to go ahead and move on to item number 22, which is review the Del Norte County General Plan Annual Progress Report as requested by the Director of Community Development. Heidi, are you with us?
Good morning, Board. Yes, I am with you this morning. Thank you for having this item on the agenda. We have an April 1 deadline to submit this to the California Department of Housing and Community Development and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research. What this document is essentially a progress report for the county's general plan and specifically for the housing element of the general plan. And actually that's the housing element is the most regulated element of the general plan. And through state legislation, this report has expanded over the last 10 years to be very comprehensive, trying to track trends in housing production statewide. So it's a lot of data that the folks in Sacramento use to help try to identify, what types of programs, et cetera, need to be created. Currently, our last regional housing need allocation that was given to us by the state was in 2014, and it was for 233 units for the planning period. As of calendar year 2020, which is what we've reported through, we have completed 273 units. These units are just divided by income level. With the exception of the very low income level, we have met our allocation for each of the income levels, and we're about 9 housing units short on the very low. And just for the public's benefit, we will be updating the county housing element. We hope to be under contract very shortly with a consultant who will be preparing it. Tentatively, our deadline with the Department of Housing and Community Development is May 2022, but that is tentative. It's not set in stone. The state has also not provided us with the 6th cycle housing element update, regional housing need allocation. So we don't know how many units they want us to plan for, or housing units. So that's what this is in a nutshell, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
So Heidi, just a quick question before I open up to the rest of the board. This is the piece that concerns me a little bit with potential conflicts coming into Del Norte County associated with Board of Forestry regulations and maybe demand by the state for us to make available more housing in our community. I'm thinking there's going to be some conflict here going forward in the future. Are you seeing the same, or am I just overreacting?
No, I don't think you're overreacting at all. And yeah, I think it's a very valid concern. I think just housing generally will be affected by the Board of Forestry. As far as affordable housing, for the most part, in order to even qualify for affordable housing outside of, say, accessory dwelling units, you really need to be in the urban areas that have public water and sewer where you have higher densities. Otherwise, it just doesn't pencil out with the cost of land and construction. But I mean, overall, the big picture for our community, yeah, I think it's going to be a real problem. And I know in some of our discussions with Humboldt County, they were extremely concerned that the impacts of the draft fire safe regulations may everything vacant site inventory for their housing element update. So I haven't analyzed our list, but I think, there will be some sites that would be affected depending on how this whole, the regulations shake out.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the board at this time? Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yeah, you answered most of my questions. I think Heidi, Chris brought up a good point, but that was what that I noticed on your report about the housing element. So when do you expect the regulations to come out that we will know?
The Board of Forestry regulations, well, they are, I think, based on those.
No, didn't you say something about you don't know where we're at with our housing element until we get to?
Okay, thank you. Yes. Or what we call the RENA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation Number.
Yeah.
I called Sacramento in December trying to find out, and they told me we would probably have them in January, which we have not. I'm kind of excited because the potential consultant that we have preparing the document, they've worked with Del Norte County in the past, and some of their subcontractors are based here locally, so it has a local feel to it. But they're also going to be right in Sacramento where housing and community development is located. So I think if I can't get the numbers from them myself soon, I'm hoping that our consultants are going to have some connections that will be able to get them for us. I'm kind of going to be anxious to see what they're going to look like. The last set that we had were relatively low, and I think that was statewide. They were relatively low numbers, which is a good thing when you're trying to create a vacant site inventory versus the prior cycle, which was really heavy. But anyway, as soon as I get that information, I will certainly share it with the full board through an email.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that, Heidi. Okay, any other questions from the board at this time? All right, let's go ahead and open it up for public comment. Kylie, do we have public comment on this agenda item?
Chair, I'm not seeing any public comment at this time.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and return to the board, and there's no action on this item other than to receive it, and we've received it. Thank you for that update, Heidi. And go ahead and just stick on because you're on the next item here. And that is item number 23 on our agenda, which is introduce an ordinance establishing regulations for pre-treatment of industrial wastewater by title only and waive further reading, set a hearing to adopt the ordinance on April 13th, 2021, and designate county council to prepare a summary of the ordinance for publication. So Heidi, you want to take it from here?
Actually, Joel county council, he's actually taken the lead on this. He has definitely consulted with me along the way, and we're on the same page, but he has taken the lead.
Yeah, okay, this is something that Martha Rice has been working on for a while now, but the city provides our wastewater treatment and the CSA feeds into it and therefore has to comply with the city's permit ordinance. So this adopts in the county area the same rules as the city has. And then a joint powers agreement will come forward at the next meeting when it's done being proofread mostly to give the city authority to actually then enforce the rules that this regulation is adopting. So it basically gives the city the ability to comply with its permit, and it gives us the ability to continue to stay connected to the city's sewer, and it takes any actual staff obligation to enforce or regulate off the county and gives it to the city. The rest of it, it's kind of a complicated ordinance, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Any questions from the board at this time? Okay, seeing none. Kylie, is there any public comment on this item?
Chair, I'm not seeing any public comment at this time.
All right, so how's the board wish to move forward? Do we have any motions?
Make a motion.
I can make a motion to, I believe what you're looking for, council, is to designate county council to prepare a summary of the ordinance and publications. You're on mute, Joel.
All three of the things, to introduce it by title only, waive further reading, set the hearing, and designate county council.
I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Supervisor Starkey and Supervisor Short. Kylie, can you please poll the vote?
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right. Let's go ahead and move on with item number 24 on our agenda, which is appoint Neil Lopez as County Administrative Officer at a range of A2 Step H of the appointed department head salary schedule effective April 1st, 2021, and approve the separation agreement as attached as requested by Human Resources.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Kylie, public comment.
Yes, one moment. Linda, you are on.
Good morning. So are you going to disclose what this pay raise is? Or do I need to place it in writing and ask? That's my question. What are we going to be paying the assistant or the new CAO? Hello? Anybody?
Thank you.
Oh, you're not going to answer the question?
I don't have that information with me. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Chair, I'm not seeing any public comment at this time.
All right. Then we do have a motion and a second on the table. Kylie, please pull the vote.
Supervisor Starkey, I'm not seeing her on there. I wonder if she accidentally got kicked off.
A little minor technical difficulty. Hopefully she'll rejoin us for the vote.
I was kicked off, but I vote yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Think there's a conspiracy out there? Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes, apparently there is. I would definitely like to open the floor up to Neil Lopez if he's willing to say a few words. And I just want to say this was a great process to participate in. Obviously, as we discussed earlier in public comment, finding somebody to fill County Administrative Officer Serena's shoes, it's tough. Obviously, finding somebody with that kind of dedication to the county. And during that interview process, there was very clearly one person that rose to the top of this pile of folks that would potentially be able to fill CEO Serena's shoes, and that was Neil Lopez. And Neil, I want to congratulate you for not only submitting your application to such a tough and time-consuming position, but also being so dedicated on your many years to the county. You're welcome to say a few words at this time, but I wanted you to know that going into it, that you were definitely the top of the top when it came to this process.
Thank you, Chair Howard. I appreciate the kind words. I'd like to start by just thanking the Board of Supervisors for selecting me for this position. I'm excited about the opportunity and I appreciate the board putting its confidence in me. After 21 years as an assistant department head here with the county, both in the auditor controller's office and the Office of Administration, I'm extremely familiar with local issues and the challenges this county faces. In saying that, I also know that after 21 years, the majority of these challenges are not individual, which is why I feel fortunate to be a part of a team surrounded with county employees and local partners who are extremely talented and intelligent individuals. And I know that we face most of these challenges as a team in providing services for this community. As all of you have mentioned earlier today in your reports, I have some big shoes to fill. I would like to, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's a more dedicated employee or a harder working person than Jay Serena. And it's been a pleasure working with him. He definitely deserves this retirement. He is going to be missed. And I'd also like to take an opportunity to thank everybody for the support that I've been given through this process, from my family and friends, fellow county employees, local partners, and the community as a whole. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks so much for those words, Neil.
You bet.
Really
Thank you all.
All right. Then let's go ahead with budget transfers at this time. We have items 25, 26, and 27 on our agenda, which is approve and adopt budget transfer item 3033-03 in the amount of $42,000 with the within the civil budget unit. Also, item number 03-4 in the amount of $108,000 within the jail budget unit, and also item 03-05 in the amount of $244,130 in the public health budget unit. And then item 03-06, the amount of $3,600 within the public health budget unit.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve budget transfers 0303, 0304, 0305, 0306.
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Hemmingson and Supervisor Short. Kylie, is there any public comment?
Chair, I'm not seeing any public comment at this time.
Okay, very good. And let's go ahead and bring it back to the board for a vote.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Supervisor Short,
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson,
Yes.
Chair Howard.
Yes. All right, we'll go ahead and move at this time to item number 29, which is discuss and give direction to staff regarding a priority list for the community funded projects as requested by the county administrative officer. Jay, you're up.
So in your agenda is a short report in regards to community funded projects, and also joining us today is Greg Burns, our advocate with Thorn Run. And this came up fairly recently, March 10th, that Congress was looking at what used to be called earmarks, and now they're called community funded projects. And Greg had gotten a hold of me. We had a number of discussions in regards to timing and such, and there's been a change in timing, so he'll update us on that. And at the same time, I put together a couple of different projects that might be something that we could bring forward to our congressman. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg to give you an update of where things stand as of today, and then we'll move on with the discussion.
Thanks, Jay. Good to see you all today. Yeah, talking about earmarks first, and I'm still going to use that term, even if Congress is calling them something like community-funded projects now. But, in short, for the past couple of months, Democrats have talked about wanting to bring back earmarks for a variety of reasons, which we don't really need to get into. But the conversation has been kind of halting. As you know, Congress has spent a lot of their energy at the beginning of this year focused on the COVID pandemic and trying to pass their most recent bill, the American Rescue Plan, that we'll talk about, I think, under the next item on the agenda. But they also have gone ahead and indicated that, at least in the House, that they intend to bring back earmarks for this upcoming fiscal year. So typically the appropriations process is an annual, a calendar year process. And they're kind of condensing everything because, the first quarter of the year, we've been focused really just on that COVID bill, as I talked about. So within just the past few weeks, Democrats indicated they were really going to move forward with it, but they didn't offer a whole lot of specifics. So certainly I've been working to keep your staff up to speed as to what all this meant and what the possibilities might be. But quite frankly, I also was a little pessimistic that we would ever get to the point where they actually did bring them back. So I always caution that we didn't have to move too quickly. But anyway, long story short, it turns out that they've made the decision now to move forward with these requests. House Republicans have also more recently agreed to participate in the process. And so it's sort of full steam ahead. Now, members of Congress will have deadlines, do have deadlines for when they will require information from, in this case, local governments and nonprofits to support, earmark requests. Then they in turn have to take those and turn those around to the Appropriations Committee in the House. They now have to make those requests on your behalf by the end of April. So they've actually just recently, within the past 2 days, pushed their own internal deadlines back a bit. What that means is that we probably need to have information to Mr. Huffman and his office by no later than mid-April, but ideally even a little bit before then. Members of Congress can only make 10 requests on behalf of their district. So I forget off the top of my head how many counties that Mr. Huffman represents, but let's say it's at least 5, maybe. It's possible that he might be willing to request 1 or 2 things on behalf of the county. Really hard to say, given what other priorities he may have. Of course, there are likely to be cities and potentially nonprofits that ask him for things as well. But to me, it makes sense to prioritize and in some ways limit the number of things that we take to him, just because it would be a waste of time, frankly, to provide 5 or 6 requests, for instance. So I think we're here to get any feedback from you all today. Mr. Serena has come up with a couple ideas that I believe are part of the board report. I'm certainly able to chat with you all about what makes the most sense or what may not. But I'll leave it open to discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. It's good to see you again. I know we're hoping to join you in many lobbying efforts to come in DC. You and your Thorn Run group that you represent do an incredible job back in DC for us. Really appreciate that work. More importantly, this update today. So CAO Serena, is there anything you'd like to add to Greg's comments?
Not really add, but I will clarify the short list that's in the report. When Greg and I originally discussed this, the talk was around something that was, in quotes, shovel ready. And we truly don't have one that I would consider shovel ready, meaning all the environmental is done, everything is ready to go. But in looking at some of the projects that were prioritized by the board in the past, and in talking with Heidi Kunstl in community development, and just looking at something that could be brought forward to our representatives, the top one was the jail renovation. We have applied at least twice for significant renovations. I did talk with Greg. We went over the rural qualifications. It looks like we would qualify for it. So I put that bullet as the top bullet, and for better reason, the best reason was because we have applied for it and we have some descriptions. The second was an emergency operations center, which I believe the entire board knows that we've struggled over the years having our own dedicated space, and we very much appreciate Crescent Fire and Rescue and the ability to use the Washington station because it has worked out excellent for us over the years. But there's a lot of competition for that space, and even in the middle of an emergency, it can displace people. So we've been looking at a grant through the pre-hazard mitigation program that hasn't been appropriated for several years. So an emergency operations center is something that obviously is important to our operational area. And I believe everybody around us does have that dedicated space. The third one was very generalized, and it was county service area infrastructure repair and replacement. And when I talked to Heidi, the CSA requires a lot of upkeep, a lot of deferred maintenance, and they've been doing an excellent job along with the city getting funding for lift stations as well as backup generators. As you know, we have an agreement with the city to do maintenance, and we have one staff person dedicated to that. But there's always going to be projects related to the sewer lines that then go to the city. And as you saw earlier today with the ordinance that County Council brought forward, there's a significant connection there. So I put that one on there because I know that that is another item that is always important, and it's something that we haven't necessarily put as a priority today, but I know that it's coming. So with that, that's the short list that I put together with some input, and there could be more out there. And if anybody has comments in regards to that, or so that we're not competing with another entity in the county, that would be nice to hear today too.
Hey, any questions for Jay at this time from the board?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Burns. Thank you for your update. It's always good to see you. You're looking well. Yeah, I was curious about entities who would apply for this money in districts. Caltrans, would they be applying independently if that was the case? I'm thinking of last chance grade. It's certainly shovel ready. As a matter of fact, if you have a shovel, get it ready because we could use all we could get, right now. So what about these emergency type things that we're dealing with on the Highway 101? Is that something that the county would look to support, or would we be looking at Caltrans to make that ask?
I can offer some feedback on that if you like. It's obviously last chance grade is a huge priority for the community, and Mr. Serena and I had an opportunity to talk about it. And, the reality is it's not the county's project, right? It's a Caltrans project. So I do think that I gave the county administrator some language that he could potentially share with Caltrans, asking if they would be willing to make this request that, of course, then we would be highly supportive of. And I can't recall what kind of feedback he got, although I do think that there's been a whole lot of all this process has happened so fast and been a little, the amount of information is not always clear on this. I'm here in Washington, and we're still getting conflicting information at times as to what's going on and who's running the process and how it's supposed to work. You have to remember also that I think it's roughly 2/3 of the Congress have never operated in an environment where there's been an earmark. Most congressional staff have no clue about how this process works. Now, I've worked in the earmark world. I spent the first roughly half of my career, doing earmarks, but it was a much different process. I think it's going to be pretty tightly regulated this time. All that said, I want to make one other comment about last chance grade in particular, and that's that we anticipate that there will be two opportunities to request projects this year. The first is through the process that we're talking about right now, which is the annual appropriations process. Mr. DeFazio from Oregon, who chairs the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee on the House, has also indicated that he would like to do earmarks in a surface transportation reauthorization. And to be honest, that might be a better place for us working in partnership with Caltrans to seek an earmark for last chance grade. That hasn't opened up yet, so we don't know a lot more about that at the moment, but we anticipate that would potentially open up for requests maybe in April, or it could even be in May. But I tell you all this to know that this is not necessarily the only bite at the apple this year to make a request on behalf of last chance grade. And I also think that it's important that if we were to do so, that we do so in concert with really the project sponsor, which in this case is Caltrans.
Yeah, that's, and Jerry, that was an excellent point you made. I know it's for the community, this is definitely the top of mind, top of priority project, as CEO Serena has stated in our board report. And having had that discussion with Jay and Matt Brady, District 1 representative and head of Caltrans for our area, he did discuss this with Congressman Huffman and John Driscoll from his staff last week. And Jay and I got fairly clear direction that the congressman just essentially wasn't willing to go there with this project at this time. So I think the advice we're hearing from Greg is good advice, and it might be a time for us to step up, especially our lobby with Congressman DeFazio next door, who's obviously going to be in a key position to work with us. And he is extremely familiar with Last Chance Create, as we're aware, having been down here and knowing our project. So I'm sure Greg will keep us posted as those pieces of this roll around so we could appropriately time our ask. All right. Kylie, let's go ahead and open up for public comment.
Okay, well, I do have a hand raised.
Okay, thank
Tamara, you are on.
This is Tamara Layton.
Tamara, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're not coming in clear. Kylie, can you stop the public comment, please? Thanks. Tamara, if you could hear me, could you dial back in on another? Kylie, could you stop that? So, Kylie, could you stop that, please? Thanks.
I keep muting and she's unmuting. I think she's trying to speak.
Yeah, Tamara, if you could hear me, maybe you could call in on another line. We'll give you an opportunity to comment. There's no words that are coming out other than garble. So can you call in on a landline or something else, and Kylie will get you right in. Yeah, let's see if we could do it that way, because obviously we'd like to hear from you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, if I could, I just was wondering about the situation in Washington, D.C. Are things starting to open up at all, Greg, or are they, you're still pretty closed down?
I'd say we're probably fairly similar to you all in California, generally speaking. Pretty closed down. The Capitol has not opened for visitors or for any type of official business. We do all of our business remotely. I do think that they started to take down the fence, although I haven't actually seen that myself. I do live about a mile from the Capitol, so for instance, I've definitely seen it, this imposing fence. I mean, they've closed off some pretty large thoroughfares that certainly make commuting for those people who are driving more difficult. I hope that, maybe by the fall, Labor Day-ish, we could have a more functioning, Capitol again. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I hope so.
What is the reasoning for the fence, Greg?
Well, it's all due to the January 6th events. Okay. Yeah.
Nothing to do with COVID, though.
No, it's all post January 6th. I mean, there's still a lot of National Guards people around as well. I mean, they carry big guns and monitor. I mean, the fence is crazy. It's unlike anything that I've ever seen. I worked on the Capitol or in the Capitol for 9/11. And after that, we ended up creating all of these, like, you probably saw them over the years, basically bollards, right? They were like, first they did these like temporary planters that they put up everywhere. And then it was like bollards that we now have, and they look fine now, but it made it so that you couldn't get a car or something, to drive it close to the Capitol with a bomb in it, right? So that we couldn't, no one could replicate the Oklahoma City bombing or something like that.
Sure.
So that was kind of the response to 9/11, but this response has been, this huge fence. I mean, it's at least 8 feet tall. You definitely can't get your fingers in this thing. I mean, the fencing is so narrow, you couldn't even begin to climb it, or at least I wouldn't, be able to. And then there's this massive roll of barbed wire at the top, and then right on the other side, there's just a huge military presence. It's pretty intense. It'll be nice when it comes down, I think.
Yeah, sure will.
Chair?
Kylie, has Tamara been able to rejoin us?
Yes. Tamara, you just need to unmute your mic.
Hi.
Much better.
Thank you. Getting back to the earmarks, or whatever the new name will be, I think that regarding last chance grade and the emergency work, that emergency work is fully funded and it will continue to be fully funded. I don't think that the long-term project is a good fit for the funding that we're talking about today for many, many reasons. We may get there in some of the alternatives that Mr. Burns just mentioned for a different way to get federal funding on that project. But I really don't think that we're going to be able to have a serious conversation about funding the construction until we get farther along through the environmental phase of the document. There's just too many unknowns at this time to be requesting funding for something that's happening really too far down the road. So I know that's not a real popular answer, and I often have unpopular answers, but I believe that that's the facts about the project right now in terms of a bypass, a workaround to the mess that we have on our hands right now. So there are really two separate projects, and I'm hoping that folks can understand this over time, that there are two separate projects at last chance grade. One of them is keeping the highway open, the work on alignment to keep Highway 101 open, to clean up the mess that we have right now, put in a solution for the slide that we're dealing with. That is not the same project as the bypass. So the keeping the highway open is one project. The bypass is really a separate project. And so it's important to keep those two projects separate in our thinking about funding and the way that they're managed.
Thank you, Tamara. I appreciate that. Yeah, and I'll just give a little insight here. And I know both Supervisor Hemmingson and maybe Supervisor Starkey and the rest of the board is fully aware that as the alternatives have narrowed with last chance grade, the funding figure for construction of this project is quickly rising, maybe to a level over $1 billion. And as expressed by Matt Brady, that if it is over $1 billion, it represents basically over 1/5 of the state's entire budget under SHOP for construction of just one project in the state. So I know a lot of the thought, at least as expressed to both Jay and I, has been to start accumulating, even if possible, similar to what we did with Highway 199, but accumulating money, squirreling it away for lack of a better term, because it's going to be such a huge lift for the state, dedicating so much of one funding source to our project. So it's an interesting strategy, and it's one that I would like to flush out more, especially with you, Greg, on how if we are down to one alternative and it does turn out to be a tunnel with a $1.3 billion price tag, how do we wrestle with this, especially from an FHWA type look at things moving forward? So just a few of the things that are coming forward at this time.
Chair, I'll just add one other point that's not directly related to the earmark conversation, but is important to what you just described. And that is that, as we've talked about during previous discussions, that this Congress and this administration are very focused on an infrastructure package. So it could be that over the next decade, we may see vastly enhanced levels of funding for infrastructure from Washington than we are seeing right now. And so no guarantees, but that's a possibility. And if that were the case, the state would have a lot of additional funding in order to help address some of the funding issues you've described. Maybe not $1.3 billion, but they would have under that kind of a scenario more resources than they would expect as of today.
Excellent.
And we're certainly monitoring that and making sure you all are aware as those things develop.
Thank you, Greg. Any further questions for Greg at this time, or Jay? Okay. And we've already opened up for public comments. So is there any direction we'd like to give the staff at this time?
I really like the idea of going after the funds for the things that are listed here, the jail renovation, the emergency operations center, and the county service area infrastructure. So I don't know how to word it, but that's exactly what I'd like to see happen, is for us to really be focused in on getting those things funded. And again, I loved this discussion that we had about last chance grade, but I think this is a discussion that we should have right now for this particular funding, and if Greg can go after that or guide us.
I agree with Valerie. The staff has put a lot of time and effort into looking at. I mean, there's a lot of things out there that we could use money for. The jail has been an issue since I've been on the board for the last 14 years that I've been here. That the jail has needed renovations, and we continually try to get money for it and have been unsuccessful for the most part in getting to where we need to be. And that's certainly, I can see why that's on the top of the list because that is something that really needs to be taken care of, as well as the other two things on there. So I think directions to staff would be to continue on with the list that they've got.
Excellent.
I'd just like to echo Supervisor Starkey and Hemmingson. There's really no grant opportunities, no opportunities for funding to renovate that jail, and it's much needed. So thank you, Jay and staff, for the work on this. I think it's right on point.
Great. So Jay, it looks like we have consensus on that, and continue pushing forward with especially those three items.
Chair, could we get a quick motion and vote on that one, just so we can put that in the record?
You bet.
I move that we give staff direction to pursue the earmarks for the three items listed in the staff report.
I would second that.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second on the table. Kylie, please poll the vote.
Supervisor Starkey?
Yes.
Supervisor Hemmingson?
Yes.
Supervisor Short?
Yes.
Chair Howard?
Yes. All right. Let's go ahead with our last agenda item at this time, which is item number 30. Review the update on the American Rescue Plan as provided by the County Administrative Officer.
So this is truly an update because there's limited information out there right now. And again, Greg and I have had conversations regarding basically guidelines and frequently asked questions that we hope to see very soon. There is a significant amount of funding that appears to be coming to Del Norte County. Currently, it is to respond to the public health emergency with respect to the coronavirus disease or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, or aid in impacted industries, such as tourism, travel, and hospitality, and for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue. Obviously, the impacts of the COVID and the COVID shutdowns have affected cities and counties differently. We do know that there are lost revenues or unrealized revenues in Del Norte County that have affected a couple of departments. And obviously there are other issues throughout the community, but with such a significant amount of funding, And with limited information on what those strings will be that are attached to it, today is primarily an update. Just I've had a lot of questions. When are we going to know more? What are we going to be able to use it for? And I would like to stress that on B in the report, provision of governmental services is extremely important for the county because we're always stretched when it comes to offsetting those types of costs. So obviously that would be a priority in my mind, but I'll pass it over to Greg to bring in any new information or just reiterate what we've talked about.
Thanks, Jay. I wish I had more to tell you, to be quite honest. We just don't know a whole lot more. I know everybody is waiting eagerly for, to figure out exactly how they can use these funds. We just don't have that level of clarity. It's not because of anything that we or Congress or anybody else has done or not done. It's that the Department of Treasury takes time to develop what they call guidance and to help allow you all to understand how you can use these funds. What we do know is we know generally about an estimate of what you may receive. We should note that those are not even official, right? So Treasury will release its own estimates, but we think that they're probably pretty close to what the final number is likely to be. We know that you're going to receive the money over 2 years. So you'll get your first allocation. It's supposed to be within 60 days of the bill's passage. I think we're about 2 weeks from the bill being passed at this point. So roughly 45 days from now. The second tranche or half of the money will come 12 months after you've received the first allocation. So somewhere between 13 and a half, 14 months from now. Jay has outlined the stipulations that Congress put into law. Beyond that, there's not much. I think it's clear you can't backfill pension obligations. States are not supposed to give tax cuts directly from revenue used from or received from this bill. But actually, that's actually a stipulation that only falls on states. Although I don't necessarily recommend that you all do that. I think it would probably leave a bad taste in people's mouths. But in terms of just what you're allowed and not allowed to do, there's very little information that we have thus far. And I would just encourage everybody in the community to take a deep breath, know that you have until 2024 to spend these funds. Obviously, there's a lot of need in the community, and there's probably a lot of people with a lot of ideas as to how they might want to spend the funds. But you'll end up with a better result if you just take a deep breath, wait a bit until we get better information, and then you can truly have an informed conversation about the best way to utilize these funds on behalf of Del Norte County.
I think that's great advice, Greg.
So for today, this is truly just an update and a fairly brief update at that, but stressing to anybody that's listening in regards to the use of the funds, obviously when the guidance comes out, we will know better what we can use it on. And then that's extremely important to obviously our auditor controller, because he's going to be the one that kind of oversees the use of the funds at the end. The priority is going to come back to the Board of Supervisors at some point when we get that guidance. And we obviously want to use it in the most efficient way also. So I do expect that this will come back to the board probably within the next 45 days in order to at least give an overview of what the guidance is, assuming they get it out in that period of time.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, and Jay, I wish I could say right now, I look forward to you just circling back with a board report on this subject at a later date, but I know that'll fall on Neil's lap and now Greg's lap as it gets further down the road. And just wish it was you still, but hey, it is what it is. All right. Well, Kylie, did we cover everything?
Yes, Chair, everything has been taken up.
Okay. Other than, did you see any hands up for public comment on that item?
I did not.
Okay, very good. So, okay, well, it looks like we're wrapped up. I know the board needs to reconvene in closed session for some updates. And Jay, are you aware if we're going to need to report out on anything?
No, there will be no need to report out.
Okay. So very good to see you, Mr. Burns. Hope to join you in DC when the gates come down around our state capitol and we could continue the good work at Del Norte County in your backyard. So look forward to hearing from you again.
Chair, you should be getting, everybody will get a Zoom invite here soon. How about 10 minutes?
10 minutes sounds perfect.
Good to see you, Greg.
Good to see you,
Thank
Greg.
you all. Bye-bye.
Hey,
Give all those cats back in Washington, DC.
Yeah, I'll herd the cats for you. That's
There you
right.
all right. Great to see everybody today. Look forward to you to joining us for our first meeting in April. Until then, have a great day.
Bye-bye.